Good morning, everyone. It's time for another episode, I guess, of Sips and Stitches. So my August Sips by box arrived. We're going to open that up. We're going to talk about the teas a little bit, and then we're going to work on some crocheting, knitting, and Tunisian crochet. So for the yarn, I'm going to do that first. For the yarn this time around, we have KnitPicks Galileo in Pearl. I have quite a few skeins of this because I bought a pack of 10. So it's just an absolutely gorgeous color. And it is 50% merino wool, 50% bamboo in a sport weight. So what we're going to do with the yarn is we're going to do a detailed look at moss stitch. Now if I say moss stitch, everyone is going to have a very distinct thing that comes into their mind, but it's going to vary based on what type of crafter you are, because there is a crochet moss stitch, there is a knitting moss stitch, and there is a Tunisian crochet moss stitch. So we're going to swatch all three and compare them. We're going to swatch them in the same yarn, and I'm going to match the size of the knitting needles and crochet hooks as best I can. So that's what we're going to do for the yarn. But let's get the tea open so I know what I'm going to be drinking during this project. Alright, so there's a piece of tape. There, right there. Normally I have my my letter opener thing, but it is not near me right now. Ah, this is painful. Okay, scissors it is. Love these boxes. They're just really cute. Alright, so August teas made for Rebecca. Alright, we've got Tarty to the Party by Tea Kitten, Eclair La Vanille from Chez Lulu, Earl Greyer by the Republic of Tea. I was actually planning on buying that one this week, so this will be nice. And Mint Melody by Vadam India. Alright, let's see. Put that aside. So here's the Mint Melody. So we got green tea, spearmint, and peppermint. That sounds really good. These ones are tea bags. We've got, it's hard to pick up, Tarty to the Party. Has a cat on it, so I'm already enjoying that. Hibiscus, apple, papaya, currants, elderberries, black currants, flavoring, raspberries, strawberries, sunflower, and cornflower. That's interesting. So it's basically fruit punch. Alright, cool. You've got Chez Lulu. So basically vanilla eclair. Green tea, vanilla flavor, tea flowers, and sunflower petals. Interesting. I have no idea what that's going to taste like. Move that aside. And finally, this one that I was actually planning on buying, so now I get to try it first, which is awesome. Earl Greyer by the Republic of Tea. Okay, yeah. It's just black tea leaves and bergamot oil. Alright, awesome. So I'm looking forward to trying all of these. I think I will start with, you guessed it, the Earl Grey. And let's get started. Alright, so I think we're ready to start with the swatches. I am starting with the crocheted moss stitch swatch because that is what I am most used to. I did start out already. I needed some time to get used to this yarn. It's pretty slippery. It does have some really nice drape though, so it should work up really well with this type of pattern. So what I generally do is I do my chain and then I do a row of single crochet just to get me started so I have a strong base to work on. After that, moss stitch is that you, for the first row, you single crochet in the first stitch, chain one, skip a stitch, single crochet in the third stitch, chain one, skip a stitch, single crochet in the fifth stitch, and you go along like that the whole way down. And then when you go to do the second row, you do a slip stitch, not slip stitch, you do a chain stitch above each single crochet and you single crochet into each chain. So start your row, chain two, this yarn is so slippery. Okay, chain two, here's your first single crochet, so we're going to skip that. There is our first chain space, so we're going to single crochet in there, chain one, there's a single crochet, there's a chain space, single crochet in the chain space, chain one, chain space, single crochet in the chain space, chain one, chain space, single crochet in the chain space, chain one, chain space, single crochet in the chain space, chain one, and then at the end of the row you'll find the spot where you chained twice and you're gonna crochet into that and then turn and do it again. And since I started with an even number and this is 12 stitches across, it works out the same way every single time going back and forth. So yeah, it's fairly basic and you end up with a fairly stretchy fabric, but it also has some nice drape to it depending on the yarn you use, so this is pretty nice. This is just swatching, so that's probably as far as I'm going to take this one, and then we're going to do the knit one next. So one moment. Alright, so I am probably the slowest knitter in the universe, but I did get one pattern repeat done of the knitting moss stitch so far. So before I get started, we do need to talk a little bit about what moss stitch is for knitting, because depending on where you get your pattern from, it can be called completely different things. So this is the American moss stitch. Now I'm specifying that because if you look at British patterns, it will be called the American or Irish moss stitch for it to look like this, or it can also be called the extended moss stitch. Well, in America it's just called moss stitch. Not extended moss, extended seed stitch. Now, in America, there's a stitch that we call seed stitch that in England is called moss stitch, or I don't know, it was very confusing, but this one is the moss stitch in America. So what it is that for 2 rows your knits and purls alternate, but for the 2 rows they line up. So your purls sit on top of your purls and your knits sit on top of your knits. And then for the next 2 rows, your next 2 knits sit on top of your previous 2 purls, and so on and so forth, creating a sort of, I'm not even sure what to call it. You get a really cool texture basically, and it's also really stretchy. Now this would honestly be a lot easier to work in the round for me because my brain does better that way. I had to do a lot more thinking with this one than with the other one. I'm going to set it aside and work on it more a little bit later, but this one confused me quite a bit. Still, it is a really cool look, and I think if I make the swatch a little bigger, you'll be able to see it better. But my knits are under my purls, and my purls are above my knits, etc., etc., etc. So that one is the knitted moss stitch. Alright, so now for the Tunisian crochet moss stitch. And this one's somewhere in between the knit and crochet moss stitches, which is generally true of Tunisian crochet. So I really like this one. It comes out really stretchy. Look at that. And I actually just learned this one this morning, so, full disclaimer. Alright, as always, start the row with a chain 1. Now, this past row, I started with a Tunisian knit stitch. So I'm going to start with a yarn over. Here is the yarn over from the previous row. So I do a knit stitch in that one, which is just working through the 2 vertical bars. Yarn over, knit stitch, yarn over, knit stitch, yarn over, knit stitch. So basically I'm yarning over all of the knit stitches from the previous row and doing knit stitches in the yarn overs from the previous row. Knit stitch, yarn over, kind of hard to see, knit stitch, yarn over, knit stitch, yarn over, knit stitch, and then the last one is our chain on the end to get up to height. So we're just going to work a simple stitch in that, just to keep the edges relatively smooth. Return pass, chain 1, pull through 2 loops, pull through 2 loops, pull through 2 loops, all the way back, just like that. Just a standard return pass. Chain 1 to start the row. This one you can see that we started with the yarn over, so we're going to start with a knit stitch and then yarn over, knit stitch, 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 yarn over, simple stitch in the in that last stitch, that's what I mean. Chain 1, return pass. And depending on the yarn and hook you're using, this could be easier or more difficult, because some yarns are really slippery when you try to do this stuff. This one is a very slippery yarn, so I have to be careful not to lose loops or go through extra loops on my return pass. Yeah, that's about it. It's just those 2 rows over and over again. Make sure all your yarn overs are above your knit stitches from the previous row, and you knit stitch in the yarn overs from the previous row. And if you are fairly new to Tunisian crochet, using a yarn that is multiple colors instead of all just one color might make it a little easier for you to see your stitches. So there's that. I'm gonna go work on my knit swatch a little more just to finish it off, and then we will drink some more tea and finish this video up. Alright, so I hope this video was at least a little bit helpful to you in terms of moss stitch, although I will admit I am an extremely clumsy knitter. I'm a lot more comfortable with a crochet hook, but I am working on it. I think I'm gonna go back to the knitting. I cannot talk today. I'm gonna revisit knitted moss stitch in the round next time, I think with a bulky yarn, and see about making a hat, because I think I'll be more comfortable with that. So, for the teas we tried this month from the Sips By box, even though I am sitting here drinking a London Fog that I made with the Earl Greyer from the Republic of Tea, that actually wasn't my favorite this month. It's up there. It's pretty good. But my favorite was actually the Tea Kitten offering, Tarty to the Party. It's like, it really is fruit punch. It's great. My sister was actually here when I was brewing it, and she drank my glass of it, and she doesn't even like tea, so I'm gonna have to buy more of that, I guess. Eclair à la Vanille from Chez Lulu. Vanille or Vanille? I'm not sure. However you say vanilla in French. It's been a long time since I took French. That one was okay. You can taste the vanilla, but it's not the strongest flavor in the world. It's okay. I would drink it again, and I'll definitely finish my sample of it. My husband's favorite was actually the Mint Melody from Vadam, India, and I'm probably going to buy him some of that. At night, when I make myself a decaf tea, I ask him if he wants any, and usually he will pick the peppermint tea that we buy from Celestial Seasonings. But Mint Melody, I think, is actually better. So I'll probably buy him some of that. So, as for the yarn, I have no complaints. It is slippery, and with my knitting needles, it was a little bit splitty. Bamboo is always slippery. It's half bamboo. It's just going to be slippery. Splittiness, it seems to be a 2-ply yarn, so that's not really surprising either. And that particular pair of knitting needles just is really sharp, so that's not unusual. It splits almost everything. I didn't have any splitting issues with the crochet hook, so I think it really is just that pair of knitting needles. I bought so much of this. I was originally planning on making a sweater or a cardigan or something, but I am in the process of losing weight, and I don't want to make something that won't fit in a few months, so I am not really sure what to do with all of it now. It does have great drape though, and it's just really soft. So there is that. I do like it quite a bit. I might just hold on to it until I reach my goal weight and then make a cardigan with it as like a celebration or something. I don't know. It could take a while. But it is really nice. And I love the texture it gave these. It has like a tiny bit of a halo to it. And then it's drapey. I can't get the camera to focus. Okay, well, it's got a tiny bit of a halo, and it's drapey, but also really stretchy, so that's really nice. And the crocheted moss stitch is similar. So yeah, those came out great. I really enjoyed this month's Sips By box, and it's different for every person, so I'm sure you receive different things if you are a subscriber to that. And I will see you again soon for another Sips and Stitches, because we're actually going to have 2 of these this month. I am not going to give away any spoilers, except for the fact that next one is coffee and not tea. So I'll see you all soon.